Morning. This is a hearing before the Licensing Board for the City of Boston. Today is Tuesday, September 8th, 2020. This hearing is being conducted pursuant to temporary amendments to the open meeting law. That is what allows us to meet virtually. This hearing is being recorded. If your item is not being called, please mute yourself. Once each item is called, the police report will be read into the record, at which time the chair and commissioners will ask any questions they have, and the licensee will be allowed to testify. That is Sergeant Gallagher present as well?
Yes, I am. I'm on my cell phone, so I'm having some problems getting a picture here, but can you hear me?
Yes, we can. With that, I will introduce Kathleen Joyce, the chair of the board.
Good morning, I'm Kathleen Joyce. I'm chair of the Licensing Board. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm also joined this morning by Commissioner Kiana Saxon and Commissioner Liam Curran.
With that, calling Monica's Trattoria on Prince Inc., doing business as Monica's Trattoria, located at 67 Prince Street. The date of the incident is November 1st, 2019. Assault and battery patron on patron in violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 64, Chapter 265, Section 13A. Is there anyone present from Monica's? I can see Monica's Trattoria on here.
Hello?
Hi,
Yes.
could you please state your name for the record?
Patrick Mendoza, Monica's Trattoria.
Great. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, Patrick?
Yes, ma'am.
Sergeant and detective?
Yes, ma'am.
Sergeant Gallagher or Detective Hernandez, do you want to proceed with the police report?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be reading from a police report authored by, looks like Derek Levy. Excuse me, Vincent Quintero. About 10:45 p.m. on 11/1/2019, while assigned to the Alpha 411 Delta officer, Shinchito responded to 67 Prince Street for a report of a disturbance. Upon arrival, Officer Chino spoke with victim Richard Connor, who stated that while inside the restaurant, he observed some sort of disturbance, at which time he began to record the altercation. The altercation between Mr. Patrick Mendoza and an unknown customer. Mr. Connor began to record the incident. Mr. Connor's actions caused Mr. Mendoza to direct his attention to him, to which an argument began between the two parties. Mr. Connor stated that at this time, an unknown white male wearing a gray vest picked him up and threw him out of the establishment, causing him to fall onto the ground. At this point, Officer Chintino spoke with Mr. Mendoza, who stated that Mr. Connor interrupted a conversation between himself and a customer. Mr. Mendoza stated he was attempting to resolve a customer complaint when Mr. Connor became aggressive with him. Mr. Mendoza stated Mr. Connor got into his face and was yelling incoherently. At this point, an unknown customer got between the two parties and picked Mr. Connor up and carried him outside, at which point he lost balance and fell to the floor. Officers observed Mr. Connor to be slightly disoriented and unable to complete his story. Mr. Connor appeared physically upset and continuously requested officers to make his decisions for him. Due to Mr. Connor's demeanor, officers requested Boston EMS for an evaluation. The Boston EMS A4 arrived on scene and transported Mr. Connor to Massachusetts General Hospital for further evaluation. There's also a second police report authored by Detective Dave Juba. Detective Dave Juba responded to 67 Prince Street, Monica's Trattoria's restaurant, to conduct a licensed premise inspection as a result of an assault and battery that occurred on 11/1/19. Detective Juba met with the owner, Patrick Mendoza, who stated that the video of the incident was not available to it only being available for 4 days before the system writes it over. Mr. Mendoza was issued license premise inspection 001647 for assault and battery, patron on patron, the employees did cooperate with Detective Judah. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Mendoza,
Yes, ma'am.
would you like to speak to what happened in your own words?
Yes.
Or I don't know if you have a lawyer here or not. I can't really tell.
No,
if you're,
no, I don't. I'm here with just my assistant. I'm by myself.
Okay.
I have to corroborate with what the officer said. For the most part, everything is pretty much what he said. There was a lady that was complaining about the food. The guy started taping me. I asked him why he was taping me. He started mumbling stuff. He was drunk. I asked him to leave. All of a sudden, like one of the patrons that was waiting for a table grabbed him and told him, "All right, buddy, get out of here." He got him out, and he also left too. And that was it. Then the officers came, and
okay, so do you know who the man was in the gray vest?
No, ma'am. I believe he was a person at the bar.
Okay. And you don't have any video of the incident?
No, ma'am. I told the officer that the video records itself after a certain number of days.
Okay. Detective, we don't have any video from this, Mr. Connors, do we?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Commissioner Curran, Commissioner Saxon, do you have any questions?
I don't, thanks.
No, thank you.
And just one other question, Mr. Mendoza, was there anything that precipitated this that you thought would have led to this gentleman being thrown out, or did you see this coming?
I believe the gentleman was drunk. That was my impression. I told him, "Sir, you had enough to drink." I said, "Please, you have to leave now."
Okay.
That was it.
Okay, I don't have any further questions.
Is there anyone else present who wishes to testify on this matter? The board. Calling Saint Entertainment Group, Inc., doing business as Tunnel, located at 100 Stewart Street. The date of the incident is February 14th, 2020. Underage patrons served in violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 34, 34A, 41, 64, and 64A. Is there anyone present from Tunnel? Is there anyone present from Tunnel? We will take second call and see if they join us. Calling Bucino Investments LLC, doing business as Good Life, located at 28 to 30 Kingston Street. The date of the incident is January 7th, 2020. Overcrowding, house count 172, 236 found on mechanical count in violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 64, Board's Rule 1.03J, 1.06A, and F. Is there anyone present from Good Life?
How you doing? Peter Fiumara, owner, general manager.
Peter, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And all other parties have been sworn in.
Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, I'll be reading this report. On 10/20/2019, at about 1:21 a.m., Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, Detective Eddie Hernandez, assigned to the licensed premise unit, conducted a licensed premise inspection of the Good Life at 28 Kingston Street. As detectives entered the premise, they inquired with staff as to count and were informed 172. Inside the premise, detectives observed it to be quite crowded, with many patrons standing in aisles, making it hard to move. Thinking the premise had exceeded its legal occupant load of 172, Detective Hernandez conducted a mechanical count of both floors, which resulted in 133 persons on the first floor and 103 persons found in the basement, for a total of 236. Detectives reported their findings to the manager, Peter Fiumara, who instructed staff to hold the door. As a result, what detectives had observed, Sergeant Detective Gallagher issued license premise inspection notice number 044086, The Good Life, for overcrowding. 236 found a mechanical count, capacity 172. Mr. Peter Famara signed for and accepted the notice. Those are the facts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Fumara, would you like to?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was present that night. I actually, a lot of times I'm the GM, I'm the owner, I'm there all the time. Nothing to do, I'm not saying this for sympathy. I had to go to Mass General Hospital. My mother ended up in the hospital that evening. When I left, my main door person was also late because he has a newborn, and I really didn't inform my staff too much of what the current count was when I ran over to Mass General. So by the time I came back, which was coincidentally right around the time I think the Sergeant Detective Gallagher and Detective Hernandez showed up, we were over capacity, and it was my fault. I probably should have been more clear with my door people where we're at, and the counter they had was off, and it ended up just being a perfect storm of a problem. So, but I did, I believe I met Sergeant Detective Gallagher and Detective Hernandez, and we did a walkthrough of the premises, and they took the mechanical count. But it was definitely my fault that I was more clear when I left to run to Mass General. So, sorry.
Okay. So how long were you gone?
About 2 hours. So I think my mother was in minutes ICU. I think I shot over there around like 10:30, close to 11, maybe something like that. I think I literally got back at 1:15 or something, back on premise. So sorry.
Can you explain? So the mechanical count was off, and you hadn't failed to tell your staff, what the number was when you left, or how to count.
Yeah. So we were pretty under control when we left there. We were probably like under capacity, and my main door guy he's the head of security there, was late coming in, and I think one of the guys I gave it to was a newer guy, and they weren't working the radios properly, and they let too many people in on both floors. And then by the time I got back there was just too many people. So I should have been more clear to the newer guy what was going on. But
okay. How many doormen do you usually have?
On the weekends, 7 or 8. Depending, we have a couple at the door, a couple on each floor, and it's 3 rooms. So the first floor is 2 rooms, like a main bar and a side bar, and then it's a downstairs bar. And we usually have at least 1 person in each of those rooms, plus 2 or 3 at the door, and then I'm usually roaming with somebody else as well. So we're short too.
Okay.
We use radio for everything. Yes.
To communicate between the floors and stuff.
Yeah, amongst all the security staff, and the bartenders even have them as well too. So.
Okay. Commissioner Curran, Commissioner Saxon, do you have any questions?
Do you have any?
None.
Do you have any procedures beyond counting on the door to monitor your capacity, like inside, to have a manager do a physical count?
We do physical counts throughout the evening. Yeah, but because I ran off premise, I think that's one of the reasons it fell short. Usually it's a manager's there or the head door guy there. They're pretty good, and I think Sergeant Detective Gallagher, he's been in plenty of times. We try to keep it as tight as we can. So again, I think this is clearly, it was a perfect storm of me running out of there and not being clear, and my guys not having the proper guy at the front of the door, which I'll take full responsibility for. It's my place. I'm the GM. So it was my fault.
Okay, I have no further questions. Commissioners? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
4 and 5 have been rescheduled. Calling Lolita Boston LLC, doing business as Lolita Cocina and Tequila Bar, located at 271 Dartmouth Street. The date of the incident is July 16th, 2020. Persons under 21 in possession of alcohol on premise in violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 34.
Yes.
I'm
We
sorry,
have that one.
anyone present for Lolita? Is he Mark Malatesta?
Yes, I'm here, and I'm here with Tim Mahoney, the general manager of the restaurant.
Would you both please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. All other parties have been sworn in. Sergeant?
Yes, good morning, Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, Boston Police, licensed premise student. I'll be reading this report. On July 1st, 2020 at 10:45 p.m., Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, Detective Eddie Hernandez, assigned to the licensed premise unit, conducted a licensed premise inspection of the Pink Taco at 374 Congress Street. Inside the premise, detectives observed two young-looking patrons sitting at a table
Sergeant,
with...
This is the,
we're doing Lolitas.
I got it. Oh, I got
You
it.
got that one?
Okay, sorry.
Sorry. On Thursday, July 16th.
Sorry about that.
Okay,
On Thursday, July 16, 2020, Sergeant Detective William Gallagher and Detective Eddie Hernandez, assigned to the BPD licensed premise unit, conducted a licensed premise inspection of Lolita, Boston, located at 271 Dartmouth Street in Boston. As detectives walked through the outside patio, they observed three patrons later identified as Maris Shepard, Catherine O'Connell, and Adriana Siva, drinking mixed alcoholic drinks. Detectives noticed these patrons appeared young, and detectives asked them to produce identification to confirm their ages. These patrons immediately stated they were under 21 years of age. Patrons then produced fraudulent Massachusetts driver's licenses that contained the individual's correct name but displayed a date of birth which made it appear as they were over 21 years of age. Detectives used a license verification program which confirmed that the driver's license were indeed fraudulent. The fraudulent driver's licenses were confiscated by detectives. All three patrons will be summoned into court for persons under 21 in possession of alcohol and possession of fraudulent identification. Detectives brought this to the attention of the person in charge, Mr. Tim Mahoney. As a result of what detectives observed, Sergeant Detective Gallagher issued license premise inspection notice 023928 for persons under 21 years old in possession of alcohol on premise mixed drinks. Mr. Mahoney signed for and accepted the notice, and I have here in possession the fraudulent Massachusetts driver's licenses, and those are essentially the facts.
all right, thank you. Does someone from Lolitas want to begin?
Sure.
Or-
So, as the officer said, we did have three patrons who ended up being underage. They were Massachusetts IDs. As you can see from the picture that he showed up, they are very good Massachusetts IDs, and we were actually notified that by the officer who was on that evening that they were great fakes. We did card them prior to giving them the drinks. They produced the IDs for us, and based on the sophistication of how good these IDs are getting, we're doing the best we can to make sure that everybody is up to date on the newest regulations and what the newest changes look like. But everyone in our organization is tip certified. We do actually turn away, honestly, I would say dozens of younger individuals a week who either have improper identification or fake fraudulent identification that we're not comfortable with. And our team is instructed to immediately contact the manager on duty if they're not 100% sure that the IDs are legitimate and that the guest is of age.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about, were either of you working this night, or do you remember?
I was working that night. There wasn't a question in terms of the server, as it was a Massachusetts ID. He looked at the IDs. It is a little bit on the darker side outside, but he believed them to be real IDs.
You don't scan?
No, we don't have a scanner. We are a restaurant, so we wouldn't be able to scan everyone's IDs.
Okay. Commissioner Curran, Commissioner Saxon, do you have any questions?
Detective Hernandez, what do you think about the ID?
They're pretty good ID, but really, really good fraudulent identifications. But they do, you know, these scanners, I mean, I don't understand why they can't, even if they're a restaurant, scan these IDs and have a scanner. Just because they're a restaurant, I don't think that's a valid point. I mean, we have an app on our phone. It doesn't take much to scan these. It takes 2 seconds.
It might be worth considering for your own protection.
Yeah, what would the board be able to share what that application is, that if it's that easy? In the past, everything we've looked at was several thousands of dollars, and it had to be updated on a regular basis, so it just wasn't that easy. If there's an app that we can double check IDs that we have in question at all, just, you know, we wouldn't be scanning everyone's IDs who comes in for dinner. It's just, it's a higher end restaurant. It would feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah, the Mass Restaurant Association, they put out a couple of them that are halfway decent. Ours is Age ID, but there's other apps and it constantly updates, so you don't have to pay for it. The city pays for ours. It might be $50 or $70 per device. I would recommend putting it on a tablet. And if someone looks young, I mean, of course, you're not going to do everybody, but if you get a crowd that looks like they're of age and you just tell them you're going to scan their ID, sometimes that will drive them away. Especially the underage kids. If not, the tablet's right there and it takes all of about 5 seconds to do. It's pretty easy.
Okay, you said that was AHID?
Age ID, correct. But
Age
Mass
ID.
Restaurant has it on their website. If you're a member of Mass Restaurant, they put out a couple of them. I think they even offer their members a discount.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any further questions, Commissioner Saxon, Commissioner Curran? Okay, thank you both very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Second call for item 2, Saint Entertainment Group, Inc., doing business as Tunnel. Is there anyone here from Tunnel? We will reschedule that matter. And with that, I believe those are all the items before the board today. These items will be taken under advisement and voted on at the board's voting hearing on Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.